So, I've been playing a lot of Yakuza 0 lately on my PS4, and since that game is set in the 80s, you can walk into one of the arcades and find some classic Sega arcade games. Space Harrier, of course, being my favourite, and there's a really fun ST version that I've yet to get to. But there's another game within Yakuza 0 that I had some fun with, and since I am now so familiar with that arcade version, I thought I would dig up the home computer port. Outrun was one of a series of superscalar games which Sega released in the 80s. Originally designed by Yu Suzuki and developed by his AM2 team, this was a 1986 arcade classic which saw you driving a Ferrari Testarossa Spider across the country in order to get to the destination in the fastest possible time. It was so popular in the arcades that it was later released to virtually everything at the time, with ports on the Amiga, Amstrad CPC, Apple II, Commodore 64, Game Gear, Genesis/Mega Drive, Sega Master System, PC Engine, MS-DOS, Sega Saturn, ZX Spectrum, as well as this Atari ST build. This ST version was developed by Probe Software and distributed by US Gold. This is a single player racer that is devoid of any other game modes other than race to the finish. There are 5 stages in all, and at the end of each stage you have to select from one of 2 different routes, which helps you to give a different experience with each play, and each route is slightly harder than the next. Now originally when I played this, I didn't even realise there were multiple routes in this version, because in the arcade original, it is pretty clear that there are multiple routes coming up, with a big signpost and the road visibly splitting. However, in this ST version, it simply puts a line of trees in the centre of the road, and that's deemed good enough for the developers to signify a road split apparently. It also loads between these stages, which makes you wonder what the game is doing when it first boots up, because it takes bloody ages just to get to the title screen. Strangely, it doesn't seem to be a memory issue, because if you replay the same stages again in the same session, then it doesn't reload from the disc. Graphics wise, just look at it. Okay, it looks somewhat like the arcade original, albeit with less colours, which isn't a fault of the devs. But what is a problem is the blocky sprites and the really low frame rate which makes it so jerky. It's often somewhat difficult for me to determine whether the object in the distance is either a green bush or a green car. It's just such a mess. As sprites begin to pack the screen, it really does start to resemble a slideshow, and therefore it makes it even harder to control. After coming from playing an arcade perfect port in Yakuza 0 with smooth graphics, this is a huge drop in quality, and it's not as if the ST can do a game like this better. I mean, look at Gremlin's Lotus games, or Chase HQ just to see it done right, or Buggy Boy to think another one. As soon as you start the game, for some reason they've decided that the mouse controls are default. Why they decided to do this, I really do not know, because most racing games I know use a joystick. It plays alright, but the dodgy frame rate makes the controls feel rather cumbersome. Often you're just relying on luck that the traffic doesn't get in your way. I think that all the cars stay in their lanes, but with the dodgy scrolling and scaling, it looks like they're constantly bobbing from left and right, which makes it even harder to overtake. So overall, I really don't like this version of Outrun. The frame rate is stupidly low, and the gameplay wise, it just doesn't play that great. I think the ST can do a lot better. If you look at games like Chase HQ, Buggy Boy, or Cisco Heat, which in itself wasn't perfect but looks a million times better, then it shows just how bad this port really is. US Gold games can be rather hit and miss, and this is one you should definitely miss. FYI, if you want to see my full playthrough of this, then there's a link below. I've separated the playthrough from the review in this case.